I'm Karen Kaiser, the Assistant Curator for Education here at the Gent Art Museum, and I thank you all for coming. I want to welcome you here. This particular event was postponed for an entire month, so we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. It's good to see all of you made it, and especially the artists, some who made an effort to be here before and got stuck in the snow and had to turn around and go back. So again, we're really pleased that you could all be here. Before I introduce the moderator and their host for this evening, there's just a couple of announcements that I would like to make about the exhibit. The Northwest Atmospheric Ceramics exhibit runs until the 1st of April, which is only until next week. So this will be your last opportunity really to view it for the next week. Also, the prints by the master wood engraver Fritz Eichenberg are on display in the Arcade Gallery, and that runs until midsummer. Coming up at the Gent Galleries, Gonzaga Fine Art Department annual senior thesis exhibition. And that particular exhibition opens on April 15th and runs through May 14th. The Gent Art Museum would like to thank Dick Bader and Corey Tile especially for its generous sponsorship of Northwest Atmospheric Ceramic Exhibit, and Brad Skubina for his assistance in preparing and mounting the show. We would also like to thank Gina Fruin for curating this exhibit. Ta-da! Gina Fruin, if you don't already know this, is a member of the Washington Potters Association and Northwest Designer Craftsman. She has been working professionally for over 25 years. Her porcelain vessels and mixed media works on paper have been shown and exhibited throughout the Pacific Northwest. And since 1997, she has taught at Gonzaga University in the areas of design, drawing, and ceramics. I'd like to introduce Gina Fruin.
Okay, I'm going to put all of the artists on the spot. I want to introduce, some of you may know everyone already, but I want to introduce again the artists who are here, and many of them have driven quite a ways to be here this evening. We'll start in the front. Most of you know Terry Gabar, the head of our ceramics department. And then we have Ruth Allen, came all the way from Wenatchee Valley College. And Lee is here. Where's Lee? There you are right in the front from Spokane Falls. Then we have our troublemakers back there that are going to keep us in line tonight. We have Al Tennant from Whidbey Island and Steve Sauer from Port Orchard. Did I leave anybody out except for our panelists? Okay. Well, we're going to tell you how the show started first. In the year 2000, I was invited to an all-women's firing at the kiln site of Hiroshi's. And I had never fired my work in an atmospheric firing before. And it actually was a life-changing week. Not just because of the process, but because this type of firing puts a group of people together into a working environment where we talk and we work and we commune and share meals together for a week. And in most cases, as potters, we have a tendency to be in our studios working alone. And I had been working alone in my studio for a long time, and it felt really good to get out and be part of this community. And from that time on, from 2000 on, I became on every couple times a year would try and get involved in one of these wood firings. And they became a very special part of my life. And most of these people have been part of that circle of firings that I participate in on a yearly basis. We do reach a stage in our life where if we aren't making something that gives us passion, then we shouldn't be making it at all. And this type of work provides the passion in my life that I need for my work. And So I'm indebted to the initial invitation, and I'm indebted to this group of potters who have helped put together this. I mean, I may have put this show together, but their work made it beautiful. So I thank them for that. The intent behind the show was to put together a group of people who work in a more of a traditional heritage sense, the old folks, and then the younger there's a younger generation that's working maybe in a little bit more. It's hard to generalize like that because some of the older folks are working functional, But so I wanted a sculptural intent, a functional intent, and then a metaphoric approach, which is where Robert's going to come into the picture, which is wonderful. It's interesting, you invite people to participate in something like this because you admire their work, and then they send you the images of what they're going to put in the show, and you go, really? Well, go for it. So far be it from me to say no, because they had their reasons. And I get a good example is Ron Lynn's piece on the far wall that is segmented of the little tablets. Okay, beautiful piece. My initial invitation to Ron Lynn was because I saw some almost Rococo teapots, very, very flourish with handles, which of course you all know what I would absolutely love. And then he sent the slides, and here were these contemporary wall pieces, and I went, okay, that works. Fine. He had that reason for it. So that's what I went with. And sadly tonight, my the panelists were to include 3 of the artists here, and because of the cancellation, one of our artists, Ryan Mitchell, who did the 3 beautiful pieces in the corner of the gallery of St. Francis, he wasn't able to make it tonight because sadly he's in China. Tough duty. But I would have loved to have heard what he had to say. So I want to introduce first the two panelists who will be talking about their presentation, do a little bit of background on both of them, and I apologize first if I misrepresent you. I took it off your statements. I already found out one. I've got it crossed off. Okay.
It wasn't on my statement.
It wasn't off? It wasn't on your statement? I need new contacts. Okay. So Hiroshi Ogawa is the reason why I started doing wood firing. The gals that fire for him, the crews of gals, and he has been a potter for over 40 years. He graduated from UC Santa Barbara, and then in 1969 he traveled to Japan to study pottery and Buddhism, where he met his wife Keiko. Came back to the United States and he settled in Carmel, and then traveled up to Elkton, Oregon, where he set up his farm and his pottery. In Elkton, he's built, which you'll see a whole series of kilns. Most of them you saw out here in the hall, but it'll be nice for me to say a little bit more about them. He built a 2-chambered wood-fired kiln that he named the Hikari Gama, which means the illuminated kiln. And interestingly, that kiln survived the fire that destroyed his whole studio in 2003, and that kiln survived it. It was the whole community came together then and built him a brand new studio down there. So he's a treasured member of their community. He opens his studio's property and kiln firings to crews at least 4 times a year, and he's a character. But he's highly respected, and he shows his work quite widely around the United States. He is our sensei. And a sensei means one who teaches based on wisdom, experience, and age.
You got that right.
Okay. Robert. Robert has began his professional career working in ceramics over 30 years ago. He has taught ceramics at the university level, including here at Gonzaga University. He's the one that made it why Terry is here teaching, right? Brought the resumes and said, here, interview this guy. So it's a small world. Found out that Hiroshi knows Ruth from being next to her in booths at festivals. So it's fun that it's such a small world sometimes. Robert has held administrative positions in ceramics programs here in the United States and in Canada at the Banff Center for the Arts. He's been a board member and served on the National Council. Let me read this whole title because I call it NCECA, but it's the National Council on Education for the Ceramic Arts. I always want to, so you hear NCECA and you go, what do the letters mean? Okay. And he served as president and on the board at the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts in Helena, Montana. His recent honors include the election to the International Academy of Ceramics out of Geneva, Switzerland. He was elected to the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts. And in 2008, he was awarded the Malloy Stevenson Award of Excellence from the Archie Bray Foundation. And I'm sure there have been more since 2008. He resides in Helena, Montana, where he maintains a studio that has a focus on architectural concepts in both large site outdoor installations and also museum installations. But he says in his statement that recently he has started to come full circle in his studio to produce work that's taking him back to his ceramic roots, which is looking forward to seeing that travel that he's taking. So what I wanted to do, first of all, was go through a series of images that show the kilns. Because to be very honest, when we're dealing with atmospheric firings, the kilns are as much a part of the artist as the artist is. They are, they're like our right hand. And without them, the work doesn't become what it can be. In the month of April, there's going to be a 50th firing of a kiln over on the coast called the Santatsugama kiln. And they want to decrease the number of firings in that kiln so that it can have a longer life. And well, how many times have you rebuilt yours? A couple? Once, yeah. Give it more life. Okay, so let's see how this will wake up. There we go. Oh, it's up here.
Isn't it there?
Yeah, it is. Got it. So I started off, when we talk about atmospheric firings, we're talking about an environment where the artist puts atmosphere into the kiln that puts a surface onto the surface of the pots. So in most cases it's ash. In some cases it's minerals, it's salts. So we're slowly getting there. Is it coming? Yes.
I don't know why I have that turned off.
So I start off first with some imagery that you saw out here in the hallway on Raku firing, if it ever happens. Come on, okay. The father of American ceramics was Paul Soldner, who passed away in January of 2011. What was really fun was to be able to know that within our own community we had a wonderful sculptural Raku artist in Lierre. And when I think of Raku, I like to think of Raku as being a sculptural, one-of-a-kind form. So these are some simple representations of Raku firing and putting the material around the pot to give its surface information. And that's a picture of Paul Soldner, a young picture of Paul Soldner. These are pictures of Ruth Allen's, and she does mid-range. Would you say cone?
No,
Actually, it's pretty low.
O10? What'd you say?
16 inside the Sager, 04 out.
Okay. So you can see that she's wrapping these pieces in wire and masking tape, and there's oxides on them, and all of her secrets. that she's see this information right here. Those are little secret things she puts into that Sager to make it do special stuff. Okay. And so then you close up that environment. The change in Sager from contemporary artists to historically, Sagers were used to protect the pottery from the environment of the kiln. And so they would put the pots inside this to protect it. Whereas we have it, our understanding of Sager is that we put the pots into the Sager, and within that Sager container, we put the materials into it to impact the surface, to actually impact the surfaces of the pots. So this is still Ruth Allen's. And then coming out of the kiln, what it looks like. So all those wires that were wrapped around it have melted and left their line, their mark into the pot. And this is Terry Gabar's Sager pieces before they go into the kilns. You can see he's measuring the space he'll need, the height that he'll need, and then placing that sized container into the interior of the gas-fired kiln, and then into that container placing his secret stuff and combustible materials to make their mark on the pottery form. This is my little kiln out in the north end of Spokane, and up until this last year was a little car kiln where the floor of the kiln came out and I could load it. And this December I rebuilt it and got rid of the car kiln. I said now or never, and turned it into a little wood soda fired kiln. So I throw the wood into it through these front ports. It lands in these channels over here, and then when it reaches the right temperature, then I inject the kiln with soda mixtures through those same ports, trying not to burn myself up. This is, I'm going to have to start getting my notes out. This is John Benz, and he calls this a mongrel gama or a marigama. It's basically it's a variation of a train kiln, or I look at it and say that it's what we call a coffin kiln. Am I wrong? Looks like a coffin kiln.
It's a bad word.
Yeah, I guess that's a bad word. But you climb into this and you load it from the interior, and then the lids come back down.
After you get out.
What?
After you get out.
After you get out, the lids come down. They're held up. Look at the size of the chains that are holding that lid up there. And then this is where the wood goes in, right? Right there?
And in the front.
And in here, right?
Way.
Oh, way up there.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then this is Al Tennant's kiln.
Tired.
It's a tired kiln? Oh, I noticed that you had to break out an opening so that you could get into it.
Age. The reason I did that.
No ladder.
No ladder. Well, the reason I did that is because the steel used to go across the top, and I was getting out one day, and I caught my foot and fell head first. And the gentleman firing with me was 6'5". He weighed 250 pounds, and he grabbed my neck and kept me with my nose about an inch away from the concrete. And I said, okay, I'm not doing that anymore.
And so then you just re-brick that up.
I just de-brick it now.
Well, it makes sense. Got to do what works. Beautiful kiln, though. Gets great results. And this again would be a train kiln or a train. I won't call it the other. And this is Tara Wilson's train kiln up in Helena, Montana region. And a graduate of the Archie Bray School or Institute, and decided she loved it so much up there she decided to create her own studio and live there. It's one heck of a beautiful kiln. In this particular case, on this one, you climb into it, and this arched roof on it is solid in place.
She's young.
Is she young? Is she small too?
Yeah, she's not huge.
Not huge, yes.
She can do it.
Okay, and this is what her kiln looks like when it's in full fire. As potters, when we do these firings, we have one picture after another of the smokestacks. I just love the smokestacks. And this is Ron Lynn's kiln down in the Portland area. Mina, is it his? Is it?
Gresham.
Huh? Is in Gresham?
And, yeah, I don't know the other
Who's
guy's
this,
name.
Hiroshi?
Ron Lynn?
It's really, and I can't remember his name.
It's not.
It's a big train.
Yeah.
And that's a picture of him stoking wood into it. And so let's go back. See that opening right there? Here is that opening bricked up. Okay? So we'll go back to that. See? There it is. And there it is bricked up.
Bricks, yeah. Brick factory. Brick is good.
Okay. This is Gonzaga's little Anagama kiln. Terry and his students built this what year?
Oh, good Lord. Probably about the time, just after we came to the building, so it's about 15 years ago.
We had a tree come down on the chimney, and if only that's all we've had to do to it is rebuild the chimney and maybe the back arch on it. And we've slowly added, I shouldn't say we, because I very seldom show up for the work crews, but have built a nice wood shed on it, and we always get fire in cold and snow, always. And I'm always the midnight till 8 a.m. shift. I'm getting too old for that. So that's a different view of that little kiln. It's up on Mount Spokane area. It's a beautiful little kiln, perfect for students to take better advantage of. Now this is the kiln at Archie Bray. This is the wood soda kiln at Archie Bray. And this is a picture, this one here is a variation. Robert, you said it's a variation of an Anagama. It's a little different formation. It's taller and
Kind of gama.
kind of a
A
gamma.
kind of gama.
Yeah.
The terrible kiln.
It's
Terrible kiln.
squeezed.
Squeeze. So is the flow work in it? Is it?
Depends how it's stacked, really.
Okay. The picture here was taken by one of our ex-Gonzaga students,
Sherry Thornton.
Sherry Thornton, yeah, who's there right now, right? Isn't she a resident there, right?
I don't know if
She
she's
lives in
living
Helena.
She lives in Helena.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then one of the youngest kilns in our region is Steve Sauer's little Ochiwan Gama, which means tea bowl kiln. And this is his environment. He's got it hidden out in the woods, so no one will know that it's there because it smokes. Only we try very hard not to make it smoke. And that's the big dilemma, smoke and communities. And and then these are a couple of construction shots of him in the process of building that. So you build the wood forms and you do the brick over the top, and then you burn them. Usually you burn them out. Is that what you did?
No, I
You removed them. Did you burn the ones out at Gonzaga's kiln?
in a blink of an eye.
Yep. Yeah. And a different view of it. And aren't they pretty? They're like chapels. And here's the back view of Al.
best side.
The best side.
Besides stoking the kiln that's going to have its 50th firing in April. It's called the Three Dragons Kiln, and beautiful, beautiful results come out of that kiln. You fire these kilns, the big ones, you can fire them for 100 hours. Someone said that the pieces of Ryan Mitchell's in the gallery were fired for how long?
110 hours.
110 hours in a kiln in Missoula. Yeah. And And there's looking into the interior of the kiln. This is probably at the very beginning stages when you're just starting to build the heat in the inside of the kiln. And there's a side view of the Santatsugama kiln. They've done a lot of work on that since then. This is all nice concrete. And now we're on to Hiroshi's kiln. His is a two-chambered, and he calls this end of it the Hikarigama, and you call this the Nobori.
Anagama, Nobori. I call the front part Anagama.
Okay, Anagama. Okay, and you can talk about it more when you can talk correctly about what it is. But this chamber we've used for soda firing, and it alone, and then in tandem with the main Anagama. Okay, and then I thought nothing's ever complete without including a picture of the farm and the gardens that surround his kiln site. Keiko is always out there with her flowers and making it look even more beautiful. And again, a side view of the kiln yard. And then I wanted to finish up last with the situation in Japan and some of the kilns that are in the Japan region. And there are several funds that have been set up to help support the potters in rebuilding their kilns. A couple of them weren't being fired, but are there for historic intent. So this is the Hamada kiln that's there. I'm finding out for that just to see this kiln that's so old. This one is a kiln that was being used on a regular basis, and then this is a soda, the Hamada soda kiln. And most of this is probably typical of many of the kilns in the Japan region, what has happened to them. And so there are several auctions and funds that are going on to help send money over to the potters over there to help rebuild. And and I have the information here. There's one through NSECA that's an online auction. We can go and buy pots
Starts tonight.
Starts tonight.
And
It's called
Sunday.
Handmade, I think Handmade for Japan. And starts tonight and lasts till Sunday. So it's an online auction of, and you said there are pots by
Hamada and
Hamada
all
and
sorts of people, yeah.
all, the list goes on to support what's going on over there.
And tomorrow night, we're doing one in Seattle.
At the Bellevue Art Museum of existing. And then there's the one I have is basically just a where you send funds to a specific nonprofit that 100% of the money then goes to the kiln sites over there. So we're going to move on to Hiroshi. And any questions about any of these kilns? Yes.
This question is directed to any or all of the potters. Do you choose a particular type of wood for a particular effect, or does that matter at all?
It matters. Just you use what you got is the primary thing you do, and you look at to see what results you get from it. And our kiln, we use a combination of fir and alder, and that seems to work the best for us. Others use whatever is available, but it will make a difference, the types of wood you use. Sometimes they're subtle, sometimes they're drastic.
Free and dry.
Free and dry is good.
Free and dry. But yeah, they say that certain types of wood have more heat, BTU, and some will impart a different color, but generally you try and find as much free wood as you can. You do, Hiroshi, you get alder off the street crews, don't you? There's sometimes quite a bit.
I don't get it free.
Don't get it free, darn it.
So if you're missing your garage tonight, some wood fire guy came.
I know that we're always happy when there's a windstorm and the trees come down. So, So Hiroshi,
Yes.
come on up
What do I?
and I will, you just
do you-
tell me when you want me to go to the next image and I'll
Which
click
one?
it. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna start here
Okay.
and, yeah, look how pretty that is.
Yeah, Gina asked me to talk about heritage and tradition, and I don't know why she wants me to talk about that, but in a sense, my heritage is Japanese, of which the pots that I studied while I was there were mainly Japanese potters, but it came from China through Korea to Japan, so therefore there is definitely a Asian influence, and that being my heritage. The pots that I'm going to be showing here basically are functional and traditional. I have worked in that form for most of my life. The one thing that I do want to try to bring out in wood fire as far as the process is to enhance the surface in a way that isn't or hasn't really been done. This piece is John Ben's form, of which it really shows he sets the pot on its side, and part of the wadding was on a shell, and you can see the shell mark. And because it's on its side and the fire and the ash deposits ash on top, and then over a period of 70, 80 hours that he fires, the ash starts to melt and make what we call, or we used to call, or sometimes we still do call, like a tiger's eye. And so that is something that we have been trying for, I want to say, the last 15, 20 years. Many potters, I guess, do try to get that type of run on their pots, but sometimes that's done by sifting ash on the top of the pot instead of just letting it happen naturally. And John doesn't do it, and I don't do it. But you can get that look, in a sense, by rearranging the ash from a little sifter and putting it on the pot before you start the fire. So most of the pots that I'll be showing are traditional forms, something that I think most people can relate to as far as form. It's just that the surface and texture are somewhat abstract in that they're not, because they're not glazed, but of natural ash, they look this way.
Next.
Yep, I guess. This is another one of John's pots. He uses huge wads, like maybe this big. And a wad is like a piece of clay. And so he puts the wad on there so that it will sit on the floor of his kiln with 3 wads. And the flame comes in, depositing ash on top, and over a period of time, it will start to flux and then flow as that. He has been really getting, I think, nice results by the way he fires and the way he situates his pots. In any wood firing or atmospheric firing, I think we can get similar results all the way through if you just put your pot and just set it up. But the way he does it on its side, that even though it may be a traditional form, it looks, to me, quite exciting. Next. This is another one of his, of which he has been working quite large, and he fires for approximately 80 hours, and his hopes, as with my hopes, is to do, in some sense, traditional forms, not abstract or sculptural forms, but traditional forms, but getting what we might call an abstract surface to it. Next. I was going to send this pot, but I had it up in Seattle, and so I couldn't send this. This was a different kind of firing, of which I had the pot down and I introduced wood on top of it, on top of the grate system. And so all the ash fell on top of it for not a long time. I think that was about a 48-hour firing, Tim? 48-hour firing. The clay body, of which there's white speckles, which are feldspathic rocks or chunks, most of that clay body is dug about a quarter mile from my place at my neighbor's pond, of which I go and dig it usually around September when the water's down, and it might be only a foot deep that I can dig, and that's what I use often in on my pots. Next. This is about 120-hour firing, and this being a very, I want to say traditional form, but what I do in order to try to get the surface that I do is I fire it to a temperature of about 2,350 to 2,400 degrees at around the 50th hour or 60th hour, and then let it drop. And so the kill goes down to about 1,900 degrees, and then I build it up again. And so what happens is, we call the process layering, but the ash that's been on that pot sort of solidifies, and then as we bring it up, we put more ash on there, and it melts at 2,350, 2,400 degrees, and then starts to melt. And so that's another different aspect of the way I fire, as far as trying to get a different surface. I don't know, some of my forms, I guess, I think from my training and looking at pots in Japan for a good many years, that my forms are very traditional, but the surfaces are different from, I want to say, previous century Japanese pottery, because they didn't quite emphasize the surface and texture on the pots. Next. Another similar pot. I'm not really sure if you can tell on this one, but on the forms, as far as the lips, I do try to thicken it and curl it over sometimes. Next. This is just a typical, oh, I don't know, Shiho Kanzaki calls them Iga base. It's just a base that, to me, there is no glaze on there. It's all caused by ash and flame pattern. And that is what's different from, I would say, normal gas-fired, electric-fired things, or even a lot of wood-fired pots that are perhaps fired very cleanly up to cone 12. Next. This one, just another vase. The clay body, you can tell, is from the clay that I dig, and I add feldspathic rock to it to give it this different look, and it was set on its side so that you get a drip or a tiger's eye.
How big is that one?
That's not very big, 12 inches maybe at the most, 10, 12 inches. I hope this is a soda-fired piece, and with the soda, I use soda in my second chamber. I fired with salt for 10 years, and then for the last 7, 8 years I've been using soda. And soda will vaporize and give the clay and the surface a slightly gloss finish, a more finished look that I think the general American public will accept. And they seem to sell better than all that rough stuff that I try to pawn off on the general public. I think that's it, isn't it? We got one more? Oh, T-bow. Yeah, on this T-bow, now that I think about it, we have over on this left side crystals that are formed, and I have been trying this process of reduction cooling, of which for the last, I want to say 7, 8 years, I have tried to follow the way Steve Sauer does his reduction cool, so that I could get what I call little crystal formations on the surface. There is no glaze on the outside, that is just a clay slip. And so that's just another different way of trying to get a different surface. The whole thing is, as far as wood firing, and Gina was saying previously, is the fact that I just continue to experiment and try different things, and you know, it'll be and has been so far, a lifelong struggle, just to find out what the kiln that I built will give to me. I think that's it, isn't it? God, I hope so. Oh. One more. This is called a mizusashi. That's a lacquer wood lid. I use a crackle slip on there, which crackled very well that time. It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes.
How big is that?
Pardon?
How big is that?
Like this. It's just a jar for tea ceremony, water jar. And I think that's about it.
You think?
You
No! You have to keep talking.
Go ahead, hit one more.
One more?
Yeah.
Oh, but I like that one a lot. That's soda. Oh, look, another one.
And hit another one. They're all those are all soda fired, you know, and so they have a different, they have a
Oh, how
different
big is
thing.
that one?
That one's 24 inches.
24 inches?
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
That's not soda fire.
No, that's not soda fired. That was wood fired.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it. I talked way too much. Thank you.
And we're going to really change pace now. We're going to talk about, let me see what Robert has to say. I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to sit down
Good idea.
and let you have the show here.
Well, thank you, Gina.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank Karen as well for including me in the show. And I have to tell you that you know, I'm on sort of this opposite end of the spectrum here in a lot of ways. Just hang on one second here. See if that'll stop. So, I make all kinds of stuff, and I was trained as a potter. I've been in the field almost 40 years now. It'll be 40 years coming up here pretty quick. And I love pots, and I love atmospheric firing, and I still participate in atmospheric firings whenever I can. I live just a few miles from the Archie Bray Foundation, and there, thank goodness, there's always people there interested in firing wood and salt and all these other atmospheric things. And Gina mentioned a few, I did mention in my statement that my work has come full circle in a lot of ways recently. And that's because my daughter, who's now almost 17, when she was 5, 6, about 10 years ago, I guess, she was making some things in the studio that just got me totally excited. Her work, you know, very naive, sort of spontaneous kind of things. And I realized that's what I want to do. I want to do stuff that just looks so loose and easy. And I started making work that probably was more referential to the earliest work I had made. And I started putting the, you know, feldspar chunks in my porcelain and firing in salt and soda and all these other things. And I maintain a full-blown, full-on body of studio work all the time. I'm always working in the studio, but my, you know, I followed a path which has led me to these large-scale outdoor works as well, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about tonight, because Gina did mention this metaphoric aspect of what I do, the atmospheres I try to establish with my work, and that's really, should be about 5 seconds a piece here. And then I can just talk. Yeah.
There we go.
So, as I said, you know, the path that I started to get excited about probably 20 years ago now was working with space, and that's where this whole connection with atmospheric, metaphoric atmospheric kind of stuff comes into play. I've been fortunate to travel around the world several times, and doing my work and you know, getting to know people and visiting places, and the work that I respond to typically has been architecturally based work. I'm very interested in and before I even went into art school, I actually really strongly considered going into architecture. So it's always been a part of who I am. But the arch, as you see there's an Andy Goldsworthy arch, has really become the focal point of what I do. And when you think about the kilns that potters learn to make, that I learned to make as a younger ceramic artist, a lot of them are based on using an architectural form, the arch. So you see some of this early stuff that I was doing right around graduate school led me to working in brick factories, and this was an early piece. Here's a piece from a show I had here before they even had a Junt Art Museum in the old Ad Gallery. But really, what I wanted to be physical with my work, and that involved getting out there and putting things up and digging into things, and all of it really earth-based. It's all derived from my love and passion for ceramics, and as Gina mentioned, I have been all this time. Even I taught here for a few years before handing the baton to Terry there, but I've always been involved in nonprofits since then, both with the Archie Bray Foundation and NCECA, and ceramics is really totally encompassing for me in terms of my career and my life. Bricks have become a big part of what I do because I worked at the Bray, and the Bray is an old brick factory. But that process of learning to use modules and individual things has taken me all over the place, and I'm working this summer in Denmark at a brick factory and all sorts of things like that. So you really don't know where all this is taking you. What I wanted to make sure I got across to you is how passionate I am about atmospheric firings and all the work that's in this amazing show next door. As I said, my work is about using space, and that's really what it's boiled down to. Even in my small studio work, it's all about the space that's in that particular piece, no matter how big or how small, because some of the things I'm making now are an inch tall, and yet I've spent a good deal of my career making, considerably larger work and installing work in much bigger spaces. But to me, it's all a challenge. It's all part of just, continuing to explore as you go along in your career or whatever that is in your life, period. And opportunities present themselves occasionally if you're lucky. And for me, it's just been a matter of, nose to the grindstone, working hard, but trying to really enjoy basically every opportunity and every challenge in all this stuff. So I mix materials. I use what seems appropriate, but it's really all earth-based materials when you look at it carefully. I don't use plastics typically. I don't use, synthetic materials. I stick within a certain palette of materials, and steel is one of those materials. But it's the variations just keep on evolving as an opportunity might present itself. So I'm trying to work with space but create an atmosphere, and that's where we get back to this metaphor that Gina was talking about. And it's just it's like Hiroshi and working with the forms you work with and your whole life. Well, we all sort of get on a path and we're not sure where it's going, and that's kind of what happened to me. I just had opportunities and one thing led to another, and you begin to just try and explore and change what it is you're working with from time to time, and just evolve the practice of what you do. So we're whipping along here, just about into the current decade, but a fire and ice piece, celebrating the millennium. I mean, it's like, just whatever's out there. The idea is to have some fun with it, I guess, but explore shapes and forms. These pieces are all about chimneys. You were talking about my columns and the chandeliers in this show reminding you of smoke and chimneys, but they all came out of a visit to Hampton Court Palace outside of London. And in that palace that King Henry VIII built, they say about 500 chimneys. Every single one is different. So the stack forms, the shapes are all different. This is a piece I showed 10 years ago now here at Gonzaga. And it was the start of these stack pieces based on those chimneys. So did this piece 10 years ago for the 50th celebration of the Archie Bray Foundation. And that just continued to, evolve into other things. I've done some pieces where people have taken down a salt kiln, and I happened to be there installing a show, and so I took all of the scrap brick from this beautiful old salt kiln, amazing surfaces on it, and I put it into my work. And that's typically what I try to do. There's the piece down in Santa Ana, and what I'm trying to do is always be very sensitive about the place that I'm working in and respond somehow by using materials or other things to that particular location. So strange, you know, it's just amazing that you get into something, you find a little niche for yourself, and I guess if you're fortunate in a way, it just takes you somewhere else. So all this work, commissioned work or invitations to go here and there and do things, all led out of, began many years ago, but all of it is associated with the ceramic arts in one way or another. And there's history in all of these pieces. So all of it is gathering local materials. Typically, here's the piece I was fortunate to do at Quarry Tile a few years ago. And Dick Bader, you mentioned, who couldn't be with us tonight, but fantastic support of the arts, not only in this community. He served as the president of the Archie Bray Foundation. You know, he said, come on in the factory and play with this stuff we have there. So that's what I did. It took a few years to build this piece, but it was all about exploring their potential. Now these pieces are relatively recent, and it kind of shows you where all that craziness has gone. I mean, I'm taking literally tons of different material, and I've figured out a way to put it all together so it looks kind of haphazard, but it's really considered. Every aspect of it is considered. So it's a strange but very fortunate place I think we're all at in terms of working with mud and making things out of clay and so on. But the technology from the Quarry Tile led me to making these tile-clad arches outside of a new museum in Helena. And the bricks there are wood and salt-fired. They were hand-carved brick. So they were all fired at the Bray in these stacks. So, I just put together all kinds of different things, and you just never know where it's going to lead, I guess, in one form or another. So we're fortunate. If you haven't been to Helena, Montana, I urge you to come there. In fact, June 22nd, 23rd, 24th is the 60th anniversary of the Archie Bray Foundation, and it's going to be a huge week at in Helena and around the area. All kinds of exhibitions, and the Bray will be transformed, and June Kaneko will be the headliner for that event. So I encourage you to come and visit us. A 4.5-hour drive from here. There's an arch made out of wood and salt-fired brick that I cut up and carved and slipped. This piece is done in China and at a brick and tile factory, but the tiles they were making were all traditional Chinese roof tiles for their temples. So you just, again, never know. The pieces you see, some of the work you see here are from this installation that I built in my studio back home. And the whole idea behind this piece was the space that I was given to work with, very, in a sense, similar to the Jund space. I mean, certainly as large and tall, and always a challenge. So the idea with these chandeliers was to make your eyes go upward, to use the space, and built a silo piece with all kinds of Bray brick around it, and so on and so forth, arches and all of that. So we're pretty close to the end here. I want to play you a 4-minute video that accompanies this piece, but we'll just go beyond this image, and I think we'll I think it'll continue to, yep, good. So this is an Aussie piece done down under in Canberra. Same sort of idea, taking all kinds of different things, pots and whatever. In fact, well, I won't talk more about that, but this is all insulators, ceramic insulators and brick done in Korea. And you just, like I say, you don't know where it's going, but it's sure interesting while you're on that journey. So let me just show you a quick 4-minute video here, because it turned out pretty darn good, I think. No, just full screen.
Oh, there we go.
It'll be fine.
Cool.
So this is a compressed about 10 or 12 hours of video that was shot, compressed into 4 minutes. And there is a soundtrack here. Let's see, where was that? There it is. Yeah, what? No, that's, there's a couple of my friends just helping me out, so Matt Wilson is actually Emily Free Wilson's husband. He's a carpenter. Emily is a ceramic artist and runs the Bray Gallery in Helena. So, I don't work with a regular assistant all the time, but periodically, you need some help. And this was a full-on project. So it took us about a month or more to build the silo piece in the studio. The challenge was it had to be disassembled and fit through the doorways of my studio and the museum, and then reassembled. So that's what all this is about. I thought about buying an existing grain silo, but it was just more fun and a learning experience to build your own, and then I could sort of custom build it, But I'm a builder basically. I just enjoy putting things together. Clay is my preferred medium, but it's like, well, at times. My friend Chip Clausen's in there. He ran the clay business at the Bray for years. So you kind of hold your breath at this point, Is it going to make it? But I think no matter what you do, the challenges of this kind of stuff, be it building a kiln, making pots, firing, whatever, is what keeps you going. It's what, I tell my daughter who's getting ready to, sort of embark on her life, just find something you're really passionate about, that when you go to sleep at night, you can't stop thinking about it, and when you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to get back to it. If you can find that place, you ought to be in pretty good shape. And there's a lot of luck
They
involved.
walk funny in Montana.
What's that?
So they walk funny in Montana. Johnny
So we're just putting it all back together, and you'll get to see, actually, my daughter's been dancing for years, 10 years, so you get to see at the end here a little clip of, I think, her doing that. There's Chip poking his head out there. So there was nothing mechanical involved here. It was all just a set of scaffolding and,
Where is this piece today?
It's in my yard. If you come out to the 60th, you'll see it. instead of bringing about 4 or 5 times as much brick as I actually needed, we cheated a bit. We put in this concrete block layer to give it a base, and then we put brick over top of it. But this is January, so we have to, dig these bricks out of the old piles of brick at the Bray and all that sort of stuff, so. Well, that's what I'm about as green as it gets when you're talking about, because I recycle, although the columns aren't, but my work has always been about using what you have, and that's where you start typically as a young artist, is you don't have a lot of capital, so you start looking for things to work with. And that's why being at the Bray at that early part of my career was so relevant, an old brick factory, all this material, and just kind of got me going. So my daughter dances with a dance company, a ballet company that also does a contemporary portion of what they do. So they choreographed a Beatles medley piece for the opening of this project, and the night before the opening they called me in to rehearsal and said, "You're in this." So there I am with my daughter doing a little soft shoe. Anyway, that's it for me, so thank you.
I have a question.
Of course.
When you put all your pieces together, the ceramic or the found objects in your arch form,
Yep.
how are they epoxied in, or how are they?
No, they're usually concrete. Al, I think that's Al asking that question. Usually it's just learning to use, mortar. I mean, that's what I started with Peter Held, who now runs the Ceramic Research Center in Tempe. He taught me how to lay brick for the Potter's Shrine there at the Bray. And then it's just like anything, you just learn how to play with it and take more risks, because I think that's what we all do regularly, take risks, and just learn how far can you push this stuff. So those last pieces, starting in Hungary and then going up to Korea, they're all about jamming things in there with cement, and there's rebar in there. I mean, I try to build them as strong as I can build them, but it's just I try not to use epoxy if I
No,
can.
it's no good. I mean,
Yeah, just just jamming it in there. So.
That's a great thing.
So any questions of any of the artists that are here about their work in the gallery, or, even
Should we
after
turn the
we're
lights
done
up a
here?
scooch?
Yeah, I think Karen's gonna
Okay.
turn them up. I'd like to take any questions you have from Hiroshi or Robert, or anything you saw in the gallery that you were curious about. I'd like to answer them.
I have a question for Hiroshi-san.
All right, you want to come on up here, Hiroshi?
Yes.
Come on up.
Nancy and I have some of your earlier works, maybe 25 years ago, platters and bowls and so on. Very traditional and very different than the pottery we're seeing now. I was wondering what the transition between that and this, or are you still more or less recently doing the style of things that we have from 25 years or so ago?
I do a little bit, but no, my whole emphasis, I'd say the last 20 years has been in wood fire. Yeah.
Hiroshi. Now you have to sit up here.
And to put your coat back on, too.
And your tie.
Yeah.
Maybe there aren't any more questions, so we might.
I just wanted to get one more.
There's a question.
All of these, the things we've looked at in the kilns and it seems to be West Coast or West oriented. Is there the same kind of activity out of the East, and does it have the same kind of characteristics?
I'll try first.
Please.
The East Coast, a lot of the kills back there are more perhaps brought from Europe. So they have like what they call Bory box type cantonary arch kills, while the Anagama is from Asia, from China, Korea, Japan. So the West Coast are, to me, more of a Japanese, Chinese, Korean influence versus I think the ones on the East Coast are more European. But it is changing, I think, that you do have a lot of potters on the East Coast that are building anagamas, but I can't think.
Jack
Like a
Troy.
groundhog
Yeah,
kill.
Jack Troy.
Jack Troy is one.
Yeah.
Peters Valley,
Yeah.
I mean, has been doing that for
Right.
years, but there is that whole Tennessee area
Yeah.
where there's a tradition there of a certain kind of work with jugs and
Right.
other things that, sort of really indigenous to that part of this country. So it is different. It's a good question.
Well, and from my point from looking from the outside in, I've always felt like the West Coast was more interested in color and colorful pottery. And I think that there has become a growing interest in the last decade for the wood-fired pot. And because of that, more kilns are being built, constructed on the West Coast. Generally, I think West Coast likes that bright colored pottery. And it's been a slow love of, in my opinion, of the wood-fired.
Yes, only
the wood-
Europe.
My opinion, of the wood-fired. I don't know, what do you guys up there think? No?
Yeah, the big difference between us and them is clay and wood.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference in surface and flashing because of the different clay bodies from different parts of the United States.
Also, some of the kilns in other places the wood is more of a fuel source than a color source. So Anagama is really about, at least in part, about the wood being part of the decoration or the finish of the work, where a lot of wood-fired kilns are really more of a heat source and a secondarily decoration source.
But there's some great Anagamas in the East.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
some great Anagamas.
How do you control the heat distribution through the kiln? Or do you?
You actually get religion.
You don't really, I mean, you get a sense, I think, of how each firing is going to go, but it's just like this, this next month, I'll be firing in about 2 weeks, and my first firing will always take a long time to heat up the bricks, because just from 15 feet away, you could see the ground is saturated. I mean, it's not mud, but it's wet. And my kiln is way in the ground when it comes up. And so it might take 48 hours just to get it warmed up so that it'll start radiating heat. And so as far as control, I think we all have some sort of sense of control, but it's very difficult.
That keeps you humble.
Oh, yeah.
And so much depends on the work area in the kiln. If it's a community firing, I mean, it's always going to be different because there's always different sizes, shapes, forms, and how tightly it's packed, right? Questions?
Well, and then maybe the control of the kiln, wanting to know what temperature you're at. All the kilns, they place what we call cone packs in certain openings, and those cones are like little, I've got a picture of them out there in the hall, and they're formatted to melt at a certain temperature. And so you can gauge just in that one spot in the kiln, when you look in, you can gauge what that, basically what range the temperature is in that one region of the kiln, based upon what cones have fallen. Not that you can't then go higher or lower from that kiln once it's dropped, but it's a visual gauge. And then a lot of the wood fire kilns, they'll put what's called a pyrometer on them, which gives you a gauge of the temperature so that you can tell whether you're rising or falling. You can get, I think the Al will say to throw the pyrometers out, but.
Al's been right most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's my wife.
You were talking about the crystalline on one of the bowls. So did you get that just by by cooling very slowly, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
in a reduction atmosphere.
Okay.
So it close off the whole kiln. Under the stick.
Clay body helps that.
Huh?
Clay body helps that.
Yeah.
I noticed at the Bray, a lot of the younger residents that are firing down all the time, production firing down too. That never used to happen when I was learning, 35 years ago. So they're continuing to develop different approaches. So much is dependent on the kiln, I think, the shape, and
Yeah.
getting to know the tool a little bit.
Question about the fuel. How do you choose the varieties of wood that you burn, or
I think
is
as
it
far
random?
as what Steve was saying, that for me and for a number of potters, it's what's available in your area. And alder, fir, and oak are what's available right next door on my property or anything like that. And, I have a couple of logger friends that come and deliver wood to me. Mainly alder, but different parts of the country, they use different woods and they get different looks on the pot.
Because around the Bray, around Montana, it's fir and pine, but they also have cottonwood, which a friend of mine loves to pair with cottonwood, but it gives a really sort of dark gray. Like Dave Peters, this young guy that fired the trains at the Bray for years, he loves cottonwood.
He's not well.
A lot of people don't like cottonwood. Anyway, so it's really dependent, like Rushi says, on what's in here. Other questions?
Will you be doing an installation in Denmark?
There's a group of us that formed a strange group artists that work with brick around the world. So we formed an organization called the World Association of Brick Artists, and it goes by the acronym WABA. And we're having our first symposium working at this brick factory, so we're all going to make work, and then it's going to be distributed to various places, but there'll be an exhibition of it, so.
And where's
It's southern Denmark, right near the German border. There used to be, in this area in Denmark, over 100 brick factories. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Do you have a town name?
Sonderburg is the name of the, it's where the Queen of Denmark summers. She has a castle right in this little town, Sonderburg. So it's a pretty special place. And even now, there's 25 brick factories left, maybe. But the whole place is littered. You walk on the shore, on the water, everything's brick. I mean, brick that's just been dumped or left and Frank Gehry, one of my heroes in the architectural world, he's building a new little art gallery, or designed a little art gallery for them, for this town, and so it's
Is it near the train line into Germany?
I'm sure it is. It's where there's one little place where they join, so, if you're interested, it's, yeah.
Well, I have family living in Copenhagen.
All right, perfect, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Check it out.
Make sure it's visible from the train.
Okay. Will do. This question.
I have a question regarding the pots that we saw originally in the slideshow. What's it like in the marketplace? Collectors, institutions, corporations? And is your marketplace limited to the West? Or How's it been received in the big galleries in the East?
I don't know how they receive.
Well, how do you market it then? You're doing some beautiful pieces of work, but I'm sure you
I have
just
a lot of
can't.
work at home. I do shows occasionally. I have back east, and I do shows on the West Coast. The next one that I'll be doing is at the Triton Art Museum in Santa Clara, California. And, you know, I'll present 10, 12 pieces along with a number of other potters. And as with any museum show, that's the problem, is that most of the work at museums aren't for sale. And so, but here or at the Triton, they will give you contact information if you want to purchase something.
It is a really good question though, because there is a market, but it's probably a smaller group of people that collect specifically that genre of ceramics.
My thought was that perhaps interior designers would find them fascinating, interesting to use in a variety of constructions. Perhaps more than an individual, you know, that might have a smaller living space. Well, I just thought interior design.
It's all about education, you
That's all
know,
it is.
and it's about these people in this show continuing to do this work, and younger people continuing to do it, you know, and coming along. And it just years and years, I think, of building an awareness of the aesthetic.
It's part of the reason
yeah.
I chose to do this show as on an invitational basis, was as a continual effort to educate our region as to the beauty of an atmospheric fired piece of pottery.
You have to really look, you have
Educate.
to look, you have to learn to look at that work and see this, you know, the subtleties and everything else.
But in the field of clay, from all the different ways of firing your clay, whether they're sculptural forms or whether they're functional forms, we're all about the same age. We've all been doing it about 40 years, and now our back hurts and we're wondering why. But anyway, I taught for 24 years at the University of Alaska, and we did not have a wood kiln there. They wouldn't let us have one because it's in the middle of the city. But after I retired and became more involved in wood, I met, you know, Steve and Gina, all these fine people when I came back to the United States.
As opposed to Alaska.
So, yeah. In a long way. But it is, what Mr. F said, it is education. But most people in America, and this is not bad, it's not a bad thing to say, it's that they don't quite understand the surface. They don't quite, it's not quite pretty. And I don't mean to say derogatory about that at all.
No.
It's just, it's a new phenomenon. In the last 45 years in America, that's only been here that long, basically. I mean, yes, they did wood fire in North Carolina and South Carolina, but on the West Coast, not very much. And in North Dakota and South Dakota, not very much either. So wood is basically new to America, like Hiroshi's generation, I mean, his families of 30 generations ago, they were involved in that in Japan and in China and Korea.
That's all there was.
That's all there was, and that's how they made stuff anyway. But it is basic education. People don't understand it because it's not pretty, is what I'm trying to say.
I think you'll find too around programs where people have made a commitment, like yourself, Al, and others around the country, and that there is an awareness that's grown over the last 50 years maybe of this kind of work, you know. And that's where you find some collectors and others. And there are groups out there, but they're not that common. I mean, you know, it's just a long, slow process, I think, of building awareness.
When you do all these installations around the world that you do, and pick up all this stuff, that's there. Do you have to buy that, or you just take it, or what?
Yeah, I take it.
You just take it?
Yeah, usually it's, I'm fortunate they say, what would you like to do? And sometimes they say, well, we have all this stuff, and what can you do with it, And I can always come up with something. But no, normally it's there and hopefully close enough, as Al said, that we don't have to move it far and, you get a couple of young.
But you're not stealing it?
No.
Plates from the restaurants.
No. Although there have been a couple of occasions, the Danish piece I did in Skelsborg, south of Copenhagen, was done with Royal Copenhagen porcelain.
Yeah.
And I was the first artist, I'm proud to say it. It's a couple of hundred years they've been, it's like a national treasure, this white porcelain, cone 14, 15. It's incredibly high-fired stuff. And it's like gold there, and they sent me, thanks to the director of the place I was working, they sent me 2 crates full of sort of seconds, basically. Some were damaged, but it didn't matter to me. I was just inserting them in amongst the bricks and the flint. But people in the area were really kind of freaked out, because this is stuff you see in museums, or the family would have a row of plates that they handed on from generation to generation, sacred stuff. And here I was jamming it into these bricks, and, sacrilegious, but my intent was to be really respectful of it and show it just in a different way. And sometimes it gets you into hot water.
I think we have time for just one more question, then we'll wrap up. Anybody else have a question?
Well, before anyone else asks a question, I want to make sure all of our guests understand the significance of the show that's in the museum gallery right now. I've served as chair of the art department for 23 consecutive years, and I'm still not able to quite get rid of that. But the museum has been open now for, will be 16 years. This year it opened in 1995. This is the best, being an academician, this is the finest exhibition of an educational nature of ceramics that has been seen in that museum. And that's Gina Fruin's work.
Thank you very much for coming.